Hello and welcome to So Many Games, independent video game coverage from a passionate group of people. Please check out everything we do at somanygames.co.uk. My name is Jason, and for episode 7, I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast Ollie, Rachel and Phil from the Kaizen Game Works, the masterminds behind the open world game Paradise Killer and one of this year's standout titles, Promise Mascot Agency. Guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having us.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's like I was just saying off mic, it's just really exciting to get to talk to the people behind Promise Mascot Agency, because it's been such one of the standout games of the year so far, and all the uniqueness of the game it just stays in the brain for months after you've played finishing it. Since finishing the game, there's been lots of questions in my head on how you guys actually managed to come up with all this kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to get to find out some of that today.
Cool, there's a lot to tell, actually.
Yeah. Well, 5 minutes, we're down the pub. Lovely. But I thought it'd be a good start would be just to learn what roles you play at Kaizen Game Works and just a brief look at your gaming histories.
I'm Ollie, the game director at Kaizen, and as game director, I oversee the vision of the game and kind of like a lot of the design stuff, and I do a lot of the writing. But because we're a tiny team, I also do a lot of all sorts of things like environment art, animation, bit of sound design, production stuff, anything that all of us just do whatever needs to be done. And it's been really nice in this company to step outside of our lanes and dabble with other stuff.
I'm Rachel. I'm the art director at Kaizen Game Works. I kind of take care of all the arty stuff and, like Ollie said, chip in a bit with everything else and like marketing, community, all that kind of jazz. If you've been speaking to Kaizen online, it's usually me or Ollie.
So I'm Phil. I am the technical director. So I do a lot of the gameplay programming. On Paradise Killer, I did pretty much all the programming, but now we have another wonderful programmer who does a lot of the engine stuff for us on Promise Mascot Agency, a lot more technical stuff. So yeah, day to day, I'm mostly making gameplay systems, and occasionally I do a bit of design as well, which is very exciting for me.
And I tagged on there a little bit about gaming history and stuff. What kind of games, how did you guys get into the gaming?
Well, I entered the industry first out of all of us because I didn't bother going to university after school, and I needed a job to fund trying to get a DIY punk record label off the ground. And they were advertising for testers for the PS2 Tomb Raider game, Angel of Darkness. And so I started as a tester on that. And then as soon as I walked through the door and started doing that, I was like, okay, we are done with music. We are now into video games. And then I bounced around different studios because that was the end of the PS2 era and near the end. And then like the 360 era was Bloodbath for UK devs. And I worked for a whole bunch of studios, and I've worked on like 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. I worked on Rogue Warrior at Rebellion and Until Dawn and Man of Medan at Supermassive.
Yeah, like you say, that's quite a mixture, isn't it?
Yes, there's more that I don't include because I've worked on so many games. Because like back in that time, as a work for hire studio, as I often was at, like you just do all sorts of games. I once had to do a pitch document for a Dirty Dancing minigame collection, which was not my favourite week at work. And so it's weird, just like all the random stuff you get involved with.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. What about yourself, Rachel?
I've had a little bit of a mix as well. I started my career down in Portsmouth at Climax, and I worked on some little Assassin's Creed games called Assassin's Creed Chronicles, China, Russia and India. So that was a nice little start to my career. And then I went to Lionhead in Guildford, and they're the people that did like the Fable series. So I worked on those for a bit. And I've kind of been a contractor for a lot of my career so far. So I've kind of bounced around a lot of other like places. Like I worked on Motorsport Manager on the PC, or Need for Speed Heat. Worked on Battlefield 5 for a bit. Kind of watching Somerville, a little indie game in Guildford. We're kind of in the Guildford area, and there's loads of studios there. So I kind of like bounced around like to whichever projects kind of needed artists for a while.
Again, there's quite a mixture there. You go from like Somerville, which, like you say, is that like a nice little indie game, to Battlefield 5. I mean, is working on such a big game like Battlefield more fun than working on a little indie game, or?
I think it really depends on your personality. Like a lot of people work in AAA and they love like the structure and like the scale of everything and working on like a small little piece to a really high standard. But I think my personality, because I don't have an amazing attention span and I like working on loads of little things, like I think indie life suits me a bit more, just because 1 minute I'm doing art and then the next minute I'm doing writing and then I'm doing character art and just bouncing around and talking to lots of different people, whereas in AAA you kind of stay in your lane. I really enjoy both, but I like the amount of like ownership and the amount of yourself that you can put into an indie game. I really enjoyed working at EA. I loved it, but you do only get to work on a little tiny piece.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Some people love it though.
Phil?
So the first game I worked on was one Ollie and I made back in like 2012, 2011. So that was an iPhone game right as the kind of App Store was launching. Well, just a little bit after that. And we just made not really a bullet hell, but it was supposed to be kind of a bullet hell shooter. And I was making that in our spare time. And I just loved it. And every day I was going to my job thinking, I just want to get home and make this. I just want to get home and make this. So when that was released, it just felt like I've just got to jump. So I went and worked for a mobile studio for a little while. And then I went and worked for a different mobile studio, but they also did a lot of VR. They did some stuff on consoles. And through them, I worked with Sega for a little bit. And then it was straight into Kaizen. So I had about maybe, I don't know, 8-9 years before starting Kaizen, something like that. And I always wanted to have our own studio. I think I'm one of those people that I want to know what it's like to do that. And I'm one of these people who, if I'm working in a studio, I want to work on everything. Like I'm no artist, I'm no writer or anything, but I want to be able to jump into the bits of the programming I enjoy. And I want to be able to talk to an artist about how to do this and just have a go at things myself. And that's the kind of thing you only really get in smaller studios. And the last studio I was at started off small. I think I was employees sort of 7 or 8. But by the time I left, it had grown to 50 or 60. So I kind of walked in one day after a holiday and thought this has got real big, and I didn't recognize everyone, and it just felt less comfortable. So I wanted to go back to a small team.
No, there's definitely something appealing to that, isn't there? Especially when you've got more control over what's happening as well, and you've got more of a say in stuff as well.
Yeah, but you also have all the say, which is kind of the other side of the sword. So there's a lot riding on you to do it. You can't kind of pass it off. And if you've got a problem, you've got to find a solution.
Sure.
But I quite like just go outside the box. Like sometimes the best solution is the one that works. It's not the perfect one. It's the one that gets that problem done so you can move on to the next one.
I look forward to finding out how you put that into practice in Promise Mascot Agency. I feel
just chaos.
Brilliant. And moving on to Promise Mascot Agency, where was the idea born for this game?
We were in the middle of doing Paradise Killer, and we were looking to the future because we assumed that about 5 people would buy Paradise Killer, so we needed to get funding for the next game. And around that time was when Rachel was looking to, think about her next career move and wanted to work with us. And she had this idea for like a Kairosoft style game, like Game Dev Story, that kind of like 2D management game about mascots. But Phil and I, wanted us for the company, we felt that we needed to make a bigger game to try and sustain the company, like go big or go home in some regards. Like we thought it would be a surer bet to do a bigger game in terms of success than it would be with a 2D game. And, there's that's true and false depending on which examples you pick, but we were coming off doing an open world game with Paradise Killer, so we thought, well, if we're going to pitch for games, we struggled to get Paradise Killer signed because we're an unknown team and doing something different with the genre. So if we are going to try and get some more money for funding for the next game, then we need to show that we are building on what we've done and what we are good at. And so a nice, small, manageable idea became 4.5 years of open world RPG. And like some of the decisions we made, like you can only drive a truck rather than get out and walk, was like born out of constraint. Like we know that we wanted a world big enough that would require a vehicle, but if you do a vehicle and on foot, you are doing 2 systems, 2 very complex systems. that have to be really good, and like that was just. There was no way that was going to happen. So, and then like the storyline for the Yakuza versus the Yakuza and the mascots was that was something we were doing a pitch deck, and we had to put in a story, and I just rammed that in, and it stuck. It wasn't necessarily the plan, but we were positioning ourselves as a narrative studio, so we had our pitch deck had to include some kind of story, and like we were all heads down on PK, so it's just like, yeah, fine, whatever. I played Yakuza last night. Let's just put in a Yakuza story, go, and then it stuck.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, did you guys have like any inspiration from Yakuza?
Me and Ollie are pretty big fans of the Yakuza series. Actually, before I played the Yakuza series, I really liked my true crime stuff. So I'd read a lot of like just novels about the Yakuza goings on. I just find that fascinating, and like gangsters and stuff. It's just an interest.
Yeah, and like Phil and I were into true crime like podcasts and stuff where we're making Paradise Killer as well. So we both wanted to have. I think what the kind of media that we enjoy is something with a bit of darkness to it, and so I think we were both keen as well. Like whatever we do next has to have some of that, and I think there's two worlds. There's two, like Promise Mascot Agency could exist in two different worlds. One where it's very, very cute and it's kind of like a more wholesome, saccharine almost kind of game that's all cute and bright colors, and then there's the one that we made, which is where we marry like twist the traditional idea of what a mascot is and turn a lot of them into like a more grotesque looking thing, and then marry it with crime drama and get into we touch on some like big topics in it, but we don't go we don't go too dark with it because that's not quite what we wanted to do. We couldn't do some of those themes justice.
I think as a player that was appreciated.
Yeah, it's important when dealing with because you are playing as a Yakuza who is an organised criminal, a part of the organised crime. I was about to say industry, but that's not right at all. And so we can't just glorify them and make them heroes. Like we have to show that they are in a lot of ways a blight on society, and the Japanese Yakuza do have a history of doing good within the community, but that that changes as the times change, and you are playing something of a bad guy or someone that is involved with bad guy activities, and we didn't just want to just walk away from that.
You hinted on the world that you created for Promise Mascot Agency. When you finally land, excuse my pronunciations, I'm always really bad, but is it Kasamachi?
Kasamachi.
Thank you. It's such an interesting place. As soon as you land, you're like, as soon as you get there, you're like, oh, wonder what's over here. What's over there. I can't wait to see what's waiting for me in this section and stuff. Like when you guys were kind of sat down to design this town, how was that process for you? Was it quite an easy thing to do, or did it kind of fall into place, or was it quite challenging?
It was pretty challenging, wasn't it?
Yep.
Lots of iteration.
Well, yeah, first of all, like we decided to make an open world game with not many of us on the team. So that's sort of off the bat. We decided to make a game set in Japan, which obviously we're not native. So that was another little challenge. So yeah, we had a lot of good collaborators though. Like we had to do a lot of research, but we made sure to get a lot of people that live in Japan on the game to try and like help us out. Like, they'd tell us when stuff had gone a bit awry.
And some of the initial design for the town came from, we collaborated with Ikumi Nakamura, who used to work on Bayonetta and Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. And like the setting for the game, when we started working with her, we had absolutely nothing designed because we just finished PK, and then we got a call from the people that were an email from the people that were funding us saying, there's an opportunity to work with Ikumi, would you like to? And it's, of course, yes. Mm-hmm. But we had nothing. We no story, no characters, no world to send her. So she just had free reign, and she suggested that we set the game in this depopulated town, cursed town, and
I was instantly like, yes, because that means we've got to build less. Less people in the town.
build less, but that means longer line of sights, which when you are trying to get the frame rate up on the Switch, that is a problem. But what that meant is that she was able to tell us like her view on things that we could do, because when we first met with her, she said it was, and this idea of marrying the Yakuza themes with the mascots isn't something that she would have expected to come out of a Japanese team, but it showed to her that we are open to all sorts of ideas. And she's, I think she's someone that needs like the limiters taking off. I think she's felt constrained in some of her previous roles, and she wanted to kind of go a bit wilder. And because we say yes to so much stuff in our games, then she got the opportunity to do that, which is good, because there's elements of Japanese culture in here in the game. Like the office for your mascot agency is in a Japanese love hotel, which is like a very Japanese thing, but it's kind of one of those things that seems like a novelty or exotic to Westerners when we first hear about that kind of thing. And so there was there could have been a perception that if we'd pushed that idea, that we had seen something that was weird to us in Japanese culture, and we're like, well, let's just use that. But that was her idea. So it allowed us to include these elements of Japanese culture that we love and know about and have researched. But because they had come from her and other Japanese members of the team, we felt more confident in it, that we weren't just creating like a hodgepodge of stuff that we'd seen YouTube videos about. It was stuff that they were saying, this represents this, or this would make a funny joke, or this would be a good way of doing that. And through that, like some parts of the town came together, and then we introduced stuff like a lot of the supernatural stuff, and there were elements that you'd researched that you wanted to put in, like the teacher and the train station master, and the mechanic Jose, who not all of his family are native, and explore some of these contemporary themes, and how you as an outlaw but also a mascot manager intersect with these people, and everyone changes each other's lives.
As well as all of that kind of stuff, you kind of packed the game with things to do and find and collect, like the shrines, to those mayor posters. Like, I want to know about these mayor posters, because that must have been an absolute, like, you must have been going to sleep and just seeing like the mayor posters in your eyes or something, because
when I tend to make these things, it's like, oh, we could have like this smashing sign system or this collectibles thing, and I'll make it and get the system, and I'll put like an example 1 or 2 in the world, and then I'll think, well, that's it. I'll probably see maybe 20 or 30 of these scattered around, and then I'll get a Metro Mod. He's like, right, they're in. There's 400. It's just gone absolutely wild. And Ollie is someone who, it's either nothing or everything, and if you think you've done enough, more.
Mm-hmm.
So at one time we did have more than were in the game at one time.
Yeah, I stripped some back because it looks ridiculous at the moment, but if you could imagine it being more ridiculous. But like that, we put that in. The game took a while to come together. We originally scoped this. We originally scheduled this as like a 2-year game, and it took 4.5 because we completely underestimated the amount of work and the amount of stuff that you would need to put in this game to realize the concept and fulfill the potential of the concept. And for a while, the game was like a collection of like disparate mechanics and features and bits of story and different characters and stuff, and it was really not coming together. And I think some business partners we were working with at the time, there were some concerns about like, well, what do you actually do? Like, because like the simulation kept being torn apart and put back together, the battles kept being torn apart and put back together, and I think there was this worry about like, okay, so how do you actually stitch it together? And the easiest way of getting someone to enjoy an open world game is to fill it with shit to collect, because the dopamine hit you get from all of those is just like ding, 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 ding. And as soon as we put that in and sent it to those business partners, they immediately said that this is really fun. And it's like, I like them, and I like collecting them because it is like this raw kind of dopamine hit, but it is also kind of like cheap game design. And it's like, it's really like last resort fallback DLC. God, what is wrong with me today? Fallback game design, because if you can't make anything engaging, just make something appear. Just like make something happen when we walk over something. And I think we did end up putting in a lot of engaging, worthwhile stuff. But like, with an open world game, if you are struggling to work out how to engage the player, just put a load of stuff in.
There's the other side of that as well, though, because I really like things like that because it helps me navigate the areas. I can see if I've been to an area because I tend to go through somewhere and sweep it up. So if I see a sign I haven't seen before, it's like, okay, cool, that's helped me go. And it helps the exploration, which is something we really want to push. But I also like that the billboards, for example, you smash them and that's great. You get a little bit of XP or whatever, but they also do tie in to the election system in the game. And everyone you smash has a little bit of an impact in the outcome of that. And it's not super complicated. Just taking those little opportunities to recognize you've done some action in the world and the game acknowledges it and understands it and represents it back to you. And it's perhaps not, we don't really show that so much, but it's there sitting away in the background. And that's, since doing Paradise Killer, that idea of the world changing because of your impact. And, events happening because of the actions you've taken. That's really important to me.
Yeah. No, I liked that side of the game, because were you guys saying about all the different collectibles, and they were all kind of easy to achieve in their own ways, but still challenging to just try and find where you guys had hid them. So that was nice. It didn't kind of take you out of the narrative that you were building in the game or anything, but it still had that impact on the world. And as a player, I guess that was just really nice to see. It made it feel like I was having a strong effect on this world and making it better for everybody that lived here, from this down and out town that was just all murky and everything, and bringing a bit of light and life back into the area. Having that mixture with the collectibles as well, it really hit, just made it that much more of an enjoyable game and experience.
The trash bags are a really on the nose example of that. Kind of wanted to make sure you were going into this town and cleaning up. You're the janitor, cleaning up, so having these trash bags that you do clear up. And as you're doing that and your XP goes up and the world sort of changes a little bit around you, it does feel like you're having more positive impact than just driving around an entirely static place. And because we're not Rockstar and we can't simulate an entire city where the reactions of people around you change or the way people drive or anything like that, we have to find these other ways of doing it. And sometimes that is just taking things out of the world because you're collecting them, or changing the state of it. Like you smash on the mayor billboards, and during parts of the election, it changes to Pinky, which is then sort of showing that Pinky's sort of gaining support around the place. And yeah, just taking those little opportunities, which don't always require a lot of effort, but it just requires everything to be grounded in the game. If we'd had other random collectibles, you might have been able to pick them up. They wouldn't do anything. Whereas most of these, they have some sort of impact.
And I felt very sorry for Pinky once I'd unlocked the missile upgrade, because I was finding her everywhere.
She bounces, it's fine.
Like with the collectibles and all that, did you know all the collectibles you wanted to add in and the upgrade pass from the start, or were there some things that just came to you during development?
There's a lot of stuff that appeared during development, for better or for worse. We jumped into this game very, very quickly and didn't really do enough upfront design, because one of our studio philosophies is kind of let the game reveal itself to us. As we start building something, we let the game and how we interact with it determine what we should work on, what's worth focusing on, what's worth adding, what's worth removing. And so a lot of this stuff wasn't particularly well planned out. And like a good example is the shrines, because Unreal's quite a flexible editor and Phil writes very good gameplay code, a very designer-friendly code. The way I get to interface with it means that I can get myself into a lot of trouble sometimes by trying to make gameplay systems out of like the tools that are available, rather than asking him to spend half a day and write me a better tool. And so the shrines, like under the hood, are a total mess, or they were for a while. Actually, they still are. Actually, I did some fixes. Like I would just get myself into too much trouble and try to fudge stuff in. And And the collectibles, like some of them are well designed and well implemented, like the mayor billboards, and then some of them are like the shrines, which are under the hood a mess, and then others are a bit like the foxes that you pick up for the that you chase down for the truck upgrades. That started as a mess, which Phil then took over and said, no, we're going to sort this out, and made a much better system. And when we came to do the update and added a new fox, those foxes went in so many years ago. And then when we came to add a new one, I was like, I don't think this is going to go well. Like this has the potential, because so much of what we've done ended up being like a bit of a house of cards in some regards. And I was like, this is going to turn into a nasty hack or bodge, or I'm going to break something. But it turned out to be one of those things that actually, because it had been well considered and well implemented, that system, I could make another one really easily. Whereas like the some of the other stuff it's just not worth touching.
I mean, the shrines, they originally had a different purpose, didn't they? I can't remember what they were originally. There was some different interaction, but...
So this is an example of like not designing things well enough up front, right? Like because we started this game in such a rushed manner, we ended up with this theme of like bringing the town up, of improving the town and making the community better. But that wasn't necessarily something we designed in early on. There are elements of that in the story, but with the gameplay systems, we often designed like lots of disparate features, and then thankfully we had the time and breathing room to bring them together to turn them into a cohesive whole. But like originally the shrines were to get just buffs, which is our term for like a bonus that applies to the management system that's always ticking along. And it originally, you got letters from Shimazu, your matriarch, that had exiled you to the town, and you would find them at the shrines. And then that didn't make any sense. And that was put in for the demo, because we had a green light demo to get this signed properly. And then they became you got random rewards from it, like mascot help items or something. But that was stupid as well, because like that meant you were like the context from that meant that you were just taking stuff from the shrines, which wasn't very good. And then we ended up doing the buffs, but all of that originated from the idea of praying at shrines, because when you travel around Japan, you see shrines everywhere, and it just becomes like as people that use them walk past them, they just pray as like just a part of their everyday going about their business. And so we wanted to have that in, but I added it in, bodged it in with the tools I had available with no real good purpose to it. And then it took years to finally crystallize into what it was. And towards the end of development, we were coming towards the end, and I was like, I need to do something with these shrines, and bashed our heads together and said, well, what if we clean them? And then that's how you get your bonus. And then, we had the tools available to us to add, we start with a shrine covered in trash, and then you clean it up, and that all ties into the theme. So it all came together well, but we were kind of forced to, you know what I mean? There wasn't like this grand vision for how all of these different things would work together, because we were always up against a deadline, and so it was just about getting stuff in. But then everything, thankfully, because we don't have like super high production values, we're not Naughty Dog, right? We're not doing the very best cutscenes you've ever seen. It means that we can just throw new stuff in, rewrite stuff, pull it apart, put it back together, and still manage to bed it in to the game and the world and have it make sense.
I do quite like that though, because it means it all grows organically together rather than planning things at the start that you don't know aren't actually going to work together by the end. It's kind of nice to just throw something in that's kind of half done, put the rest in, step back, look at it as a whole picture and be like, okay, like how do we link it up and then finish it off? Obviously it's not, that's a producer's nightmare, but for us, like it works quite well. And like, I feel like it gave us a better like whole, if you know what I mean, rather than just, like, it is a game of bits and pieces tacked together, but it kind of came together, I think.
But yeah, I think that's how we make games though. We put in a bunch of stuff that we think the game needs and a bunch of stuff that we like, and then spend a load of time bringing it all together and giving it cohesion. And especially with this game, it's very important for us to make sure that everything feeds into each other. So every collectible does something to the simulation. And, you play some open world games and it's just full of collectibles that don't add very much. They're literally just glowing things to pick up. But for PMA, we really needed everything to play into the metagame and the simulation, so that you felt like you were always making progress and always doing something. Because to us, like, mechanics are sacred. Like, if we have some game mechanics, then they are unbreakable, and everything must work with them. So sometimes we do make life hard for ourselves, but I think it ends up becoming a whole cohesive thing that players could really get lost in and feel like they can trust.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Especially to hear the backstory of the shrines. I mean, they were one of my favourites. Every time I found a shrine, I was always excited and happy to have found it and to get it clean. So it's really interesting to hear that side of the story with those. I'm quite intrigued though. Like, how hard is the balance though? Like, when I started the game and I got in there and I did feel a little bit overwhelmed in some areas. Like, oh my God, look at all this stuff I can do. And like, where do I start? Where do I go? What do I concentrate on first? And it wasn't overly overwhelming, but like, it's that hard balance for you guys. Like, is there a point where you think we may have just gone a little bit too far?
There were versions of this game where you got like 10, 15 minutes in and your quest log was enormous. Like, we're trying to tell you to do everything. And that was sort of born on the whole, well, this is in Paradise Killer, we didn't tell you anything, right? We just let you get on with it. But in this game, we needed to give you a little bit more direction. So we had a system that could point you to everything, and we just overused it. So you very quickly got all these things, and it became unenjoyable because it felt like we were just ticking off lists, and everything felt like had to be done immediately, and you had no time to just go and explore. So we knew that wasn't the right way. And then there were versions where it wasn't handholdy enough and people didn't know what to do. And the handholding does really taper off. But that first sort of 30, 40, maybe an hours experience, we do more handholding than I thought we would have put into a game because we tend not to like it. But we needed you to familiarize yourself with this world and to understand how you interact with people, and just to get to the point where you felt comfortable to go and explore and felt like you knew what you were doing. And like, if you miss out on sending mascots on jobs, you're just not going to do well. So we had to make sure there was enough reminders in there, but without it being too much. So there's a real balance, and that's just sort of the story progression. When you tie in all the other simulation systems that are going on as well, it does get quite complicated, and there's been a lot of back and forth. And for the longest time, things didn't coalesce. There was all these things exist, but it doesn't necessarily work together. There's no point in doing that because it doesn't have an impact on anything. But Ollie did a massive pass, I don't know, a couple of years before release, where suddenly you play it again and suddenly everything felt like it had more meaning. It was all starting to unlock at a time when you could understand it and at a time when you started to need it. Yeah, so I don't know how difficult it was, but it was certainly very time consuming and took a lot of balance and a lot of trust, because until all this stuff is in, how do you even know it's right? So you've got to really, I mean, Ollie's great at this, but you've got to understand what the game is missing and where it doesn't quite work out, because you can't just hope it'll all work, right? There's so many systems, they've all got to work together, and you've just got to be on top of it.
Did you ever like put a system in and then it just broke the game?
Oh yeah.
That's game development. Yeah. That's happened on every game we worked on.
Yeah. I think what happened more on this, we definitely did that, but I think we definitely put in stuff that was just bad. Like the first iteration of the mascot battles was just bad. Like because it was being designed very quickly. So when we signed this game, we signed it on the provision that we did a 6-month demo that would then be greenlit for the rest of the funding. And so that meant that we had to design and build quite a large amount of the game, because it's an open world game that's a simulation and an RPG. You know, we had to show off all those things, and we ended up like with the mascot battle system. Like when you look back at it, you go, well, why did we ever think this was good? Why did we ever commit to building something like that? And it took a while, like multiple iterations, until Phil suggested doing the card game stuff, which kind of really saved the day on that. And like the very first iteration of the mascot jobs was having a calendar system And so you'd look ahead to your week ahead, and you'd be planning like, well, on Monday, Tofu's going to go and do a job at the bookstore, and on Tuesday, Trororo is going to go and do a job at the bar, and like, that's not fun.
That's a full-time job.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Like when
Yeah.
you're thinking about a management game, like that's part of management. But it's like that's the worst part of life. It's like managing like your schedule and like thinking about things that are coming up. And like, so we're not asking the player to do that.
And it was constant just fighting back, right? Like if it was so easy, you could just drop it in and go, right, that one week, that one another. But because you had to sort of start balancing things, you're constantly told, no, you can't do that, or that doesn't fit there. It's like, yeah, this isn't fun. And it takes away the point of the game because, you know, you're there to improve the town. You're there to help mascots find their place. But as a player, you're there to sort of chill and vibe in this environment as well. And the more time we kept you in UI, dragging things around, the less you were doing that. There was a system we put in, I think it might have been the very first system I wrote for the game, which was a loan system, because we knew it was going to be this management game, right? It's like, well, all management games start with a loan. You know, you want to build a city, a theme park, whatever, and you take a loan to get you over that first hump. So I put it in, but immediately it just felt wrong that you were starting the game with massive debt. It just didn't feel right at all. So we started you out with, I think, no money, then some money, and then just the very idea of having a loan that you take out at some point to recover, it just felt kind of wrong, and it would have made other systems difficult as well in the final iteration. But we never really implemented it. It was there in the background. It's still there in the background. It's just never turned on. So sometimes like it doesn't break the game, but it's just not right for it at all.
I always hate those kind of mechanics in a game. So yeah, I was grateful.
And who's giving you a loan as well?
Yeah.
Like you're executing them, but who's doing that?
Yeah.
And if you're getting, so yeah, it raised a lot of questions. And it was just one of those, you sit down, and before I knew what the game was, I was making that, and I was making other bits of systems as well that just were more complicated than they needed to be. And so they just didn't land, or a very slimmed down version of some of them ended up in the game.
One of the parts of the upgrade is the van itself, and obviously that's quite a highlight of the game because of those upgrades. And I loved how you implemented that upgrade system with the van. You know, you mentioned earlier about the foxes, and you have to kind of chase after them and grab them. And obviously, when I'm going in, I'd already knew about the gliding mechanic of the van as well, so I was quite excited to get that one. I was always just slightly disappointed that the one I got wasn't the gliding one, but I was so ecstatic when I finally found it. And it's like, yes, come on now, let's go gliding in my van. Well, where did I guess, you were making an open world game, you knew you needed some kind of transportation, I guess. Was the van always that solution to that problem, or did you have any other ideas?
The van was like the kind of spark of the idea for the game, really, wasn't it? Like I'd done a personal portfolio piece for my art portfolio, and it was a K-truck with a Shiba Inu and an Akita Inu in the back. And then we used that in our pitch deck, didn't we? As like we want to do. That was what we always wanted. We knew we always wanted to make a game driving a K-truck in the Japanese countryside. Like that was always there, and that didn't change until the very end. But it was how it moved around like the island that kind of evolved. And like we've done Paradise Killer, where you kind of basically throw yourself around an environment, like you jump off cliffs and don't take damage and stuff, and that's just fun. And and then that was like the seed for the start of Promise Mascot Agency, and then it just kind of grew again, didn't it? Like it grew organically. We're like, well, what would make it even more fun? And then one day we added in the glider. And
what have our core tenets as a company is like, how do we surprise the player? And and like making a truck that can glide or has a railgun launcher on the back in an otherwise, kind of muted, like in terms of like, we're not a sci-fi game, we're not a big fantasy game or something, and so that kind of stuff surprises the player, and it invites play, and we like games that take themselves seriously, but also have a sense of humor. Like something like Metal Gear Solid takes itself so like painfully seriously, but it treats what it's doing very seriously, but it also in the next second will have a big laugh. It will pull a big joke on you, and it'll be very lighthearted. And like that's the kind of stuff like we all grew up playing games where like you didn't know what was going to be in them. Like it's nowadays like a big AAA game or whatever is like like that nothing's going to go too crazy in those games because it costs so much to make each thing. And the example I always cite is like Final Fantasy 15. That was the last one I can think of like, because of the way that game was made over the course of a decade with multiple different like directors and teams and stuff, and it was all brought together at the end. I love that game so much because it's got so many cool elements to it, and you never knew what you were going to find in there. Like it's such a strange game when you look at being the flagship game from Square Enix, and that is a weird game full of stuff, and so I think we want to do games like that where the player is surprised, the player is delighted. There's always a sense of mastery. Like our control methods, our movement methods for our characters are not perfect. They are not best in class, but they are fun to master. There's a texture to them that. There's another designer that sometimes emails me to give me his thoughts on our games, and he always approaches it of like, this doesn't feel like perfect. This movement system isn't perfect, and these jumps could be better or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but it's really fun, isn't it? It's really fun to have something with texture that is just like it feels different to any other game, and
janky charm.
Yeah, and. And Rachel's right that you just need to be able to throw yourself around this world in the truck, like you do with an open world game. You just like when you play Far Cry or something, you just throwing yourself through mountains and forests to get to your objective. So we need that, and let's never take it too seriously. I don't think any of us want to make like a real world game, like a gritty, realistic game or anything. So let's just do silly stuff. And let's say we all grew up with games where silly stuff happened. Like a lot of PS1, PS2 games, Dreamcast games were made where just all sorts of like, in an otherwise serious like kind of narrative, something silly would happen. And like the Yakuza games are a great example of that. Just wonderfully silly games, but also wonderfully serious games.
And look, nothing needs to be perfect. I think sometimes when things are perfect, they're not as much fun or as good.
Your favorite thing is never the perfect thing.
Yeah.
It's the thing that kind of just catches you. It's an amazing idea, but there's something in it which speaks to you. And if everything was perfect, everyone loved the same thing. What a boring world.
Yeah. Well, with the van upgrades, I know like with the update you guys have just released with the grinding, but like were there any other upgrades or mechanics that you had planned for the van that you couldn't include in the game?
I don't know if there were, actually.
We talked about wanting to make the van electric at some point, or I did, but it was never really something we got into because I don't think it would have added much. Like in terms of it cleans up the town a bit, but you've got this real danger that it wouldn't feel like the same truck because the sounds would have to change. And potentially you could take it so far as to change just how it moves, and it's just not the same. So it would just be this sort of fairly cheap device that just, it's electric now. And I'm not sure that's what, I'm just not sure it's worth it. But I don't think there's anything like mechanically that we wanted to add that didn't go in there. Because the glide was a question because, we're making this game that's kind of hard to make, especially on the Switch. This open world with loads of foliage, with a dynamic daylight cycle. You're struggling to hit good FPS anyway, and then suddenly by being able to glide above the island and be able to see the entire thing, that's a real sort of problem. So for a little while I was thinking, can we even do the glide? But fortunately we've got a Harry with us who makes us certainly helps us achieve those goals.
Yeah, we had one programmer just purely assigned to the truck. He did other stuff as well, but like he just took that on, and he was on board for doing the gliding, but I don't think he was thrilled with the knock-ons of what the pain it would cause.
It does introduce a lot of problems, but we wanted it, and it was obviously going to be a cool thing if we could pull it off. So you've got to push for it, right?
Yeah, we had to make the game look a bit worse, didn't we? Because like when you can see the whole world, suddenly you can see like 1,000 trees when you could only see like 100 before. So like that automatically meant that a lot of the art had to be really crunched down. And as an artist, that's really painful. We always we always have the mantra like fun first, almost it's whatever's fun, fine. Sacrifices have to be made. But yeah, that was like Phil said, that was a bit dicey. But when we put it in, I was like, oh god, I don't know if this is going to happen. But we just kind of crunched it down enough, and it all worked out.
I think it still looks great on the lower end platforms. I'm really happy with where we got to on that. It looks surprisingly good considering what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I played it on the Steam Deck, and it was.
Oh, that's a great version. I really like that one.
Version.
We play a lot on the Steam Deck because once you've done, you sat here at your computer making it all day. If you just want to test something, you don't want to go back on your computer and do it. You want to be able to just sit down and I'd often just sit down and sort of be idly watching TV and just getting to the thing that I need to test. You can sort of half pay attention to it. Being able to do it on the Steam Deck and have it look and feel like the target versions. Well, it doesn't look as good as the PS5 version, obviously, but it still looks really good and feels really good. That's important. Now, I'm really happy with where we've got to on it.
I mean, even my reviewer who reviewed the game on the Switch, I mean, he didn't have any bad things to say about that version. So, I mean, I appreciate that. You've said that it was quite a mission to get it onto the Switch and run well enough.
It did. The first versions we put on there were running between 2 and 5 frames a second, and then it crashed before you could get anywhere. It was really rough, but I think that's true before you optimize most games like that. Like there's some big easy wins, but then getting it to feel good consistently, that's where you have to start kind of just little cuts everywhere to get it there.
Obviously, it's in the title, the mascots, and obviously I need to ask you guys about them because they're amazing, every single one of them. The process of designing those, was that quite a fun thing to do? Did it get quite laborious or monotonous or anything like that? Did you have struggles to come up with designs for the amount that you wanted to include in the game? Sorry, I know that's a lot of questions in one little bit, but...
You know what? We didn't have any struggle with it. I think that's like one of the most fun parts for me. And we all came up with different ones. If someone came up with a cool idea, it's like, yep, that's going in. Great. Like Ikumi Nakamura gave us a batch. There was some we used, like Troro was hers. I'm trying to think, Tamageta was hers. Tofu was hers, yeah.
Go fun. A lot of them.
Yeah, good. Like the core ones kind of came from Ikumi. Yeah, it was just like random ideas after that, I guess. Like
puns, like Salary Nyan and Kakigori.
Phil's wife Amy came up with some based on puns. They've become fan favourites. And then we got told off because our mascots were too grotesque and ugly. So they were like, we need some more cute mascots. So I came up with Ichigo Love, who's like the sickliest, sweetest looking mascot. But then because we can't help ourselves, we gave him a really deep voice to try and still surprise people. But at least we had a mascot that looked good on the key art. And we just kind of, it was just really fun. Like we didn't really have much struggle. It's just like, I don't know, that just flowed really well. I don't know how it happened, but everyone just had a real good time with it. And then, we had these ideas from everyone in the team, and then kind of took them all up and then gave them to our amazing 2D artist, Inko. And then she'd draw our sketches. Like some of the sketches are awful. Like they're literally just like a little pencil ball with a smiley face, and she's like, oh yeah, I can make this this thing. And then once they all went through her filter, then it all kind of came together, didn't it? And it's like one kind of whole. But yeah, it was good fun. And then they all had quite distinct personalities, but then when the voice acting came in, that's when they came alive as well. Like that, I don't think we realised how much more life they'd get for not for free, but their personality just all got ramped up by 100%, didn't they? When the voice acting went in, that was really fun.
Do you guys have a favourite mascot?
Mine changes all the time, and you can't ask us to pick between our children. I've always liked Kofen a lot, kind of gel well with her. And I really like Motson, but a lot of people absolutely hate Motson. So I like how some of them are quite divisive.
I like his the dialogue style that he got.
He's cute.
He's cool. My favourite's always Pinky. She isn't a recruitable mascot, but she is a mascot, so she counts. And she's the most fun to write. She's the best character, and every time I got to write her dialogue, it was really fun. Just like that's what I think. Games need humor a lot of the time, and again, like this kind of surprising people. Like people were surprised by Pinky and some of her turns of phrase and some of her attitude towards stuff, and she's just such a great foil to have against your like the normal straight guy. Like as part of the comedy duo, you got the straight guy and you got the crazy one, and it's such a great dynamic.
Yeah, no, Pinky's my favourite just for all that kind of stuff. You know, she was quite unpredictable in places and just always made me smile. You know? Especially, you know, when she got angry, she pulled that kind of face. You know,
Yeah.
That line, like the angry, is so endearing. Like everything she does, it's just no matter what, it's somehow charming, and that's wonderful. It's the real sort of light in the game. Yeah, always love Pinky, but as Wave said, my favourite changes all the time. I think it just depends where I am in the game, because Kamori always stands out. Then I get to the end of the game and go, oh yeah, Koike boy, yeah.
So you always liked Tofu as well, didn't you? All the way through development, you were always a Tofu boy.
I am a big Tofu fan, yeah. It changes all the time.
Like, was Pinky always like the non-recruitable mascot, or did you have other ideas?
No, we needed an assistant character, because Michi is like that classic stranger in a strange world, and the player needed someone to be able to guide them through. And when we asked Ikumi for that assistant character, she came back with Pinky, specifically because of the Yakuza connotations with that, and to help kind of create a bond between Michi and her. And then I think I always knew that, you know, it was going to be one of those types of characters, like explosively angry but also very sentimental and very funny. You know, we'd been watching that Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken anime at the time, and there's some great angry characters in that, but also like it's like a group of friends that are very, you know, they stick by each other, go through thick and thin together, but you know, they each make each other angry and drive each other crazy in different ways, and it's a really fun dynamic.
One big part of the mechanic with the mascots was sending them out on jobs to earn you money. But if the mascots got in trouble, you had to go and bail them out and play this card game, which was great. Such a nice break from the main game. Some of the situations that you guys put these mascots in were quite incredible, really funny. Was that always the plan with the card game? You know, did you have more maybe sensible situations that they were in, or were they always going to be silly?
They were always going to be silly because we needed to show the mascots physical humour. And once we put in a couple, like getting stuck in a door and setting the cooker on fire, you know, like we have to keep ramping it up because we need different difficulty levels of them, and so that just means they have to get somewhat crazier. And again, that's why it's really cool to not be working in a real world, like a realistic game, is that we start off knocking over cardboard boxes and end causing a biohazard incident with the hardest version of that job. And again, like, sensible isn't really a word that creeps into the Kaizen design philosophy.
So I've got one question for one of my writers, Stephen. He wanted to know, like, what prompted you to shift tone between something as serious as Paradise Killer to something as goofy as Promise Mascot Agency. Like, he loved both games and thought that you did a cracking job translating the unique style between them.
Well, I think, I don't know if it's the same for you guys. I think some of it was like when Paradise Killer came out, not to get like too political, it was like a tough time in the UK, but it was like the beginning of the tough times. And then obviously it came out like in COVID and stuff. So Paradise Killer, like, it felt like we could do a dark tone and everyone wasn't exhausted yet. But now, like, everyone's just exhausted because it's been a bit tough for a long time. So now then we've kind of felt, okay, it's time to kind of give some hope. Like, Paradise Killer is quite, I don't want to say hopeless, but like the cycle, kind of repeats. And I think we wanted to make something with a bit more hope this time because, people are tired. And, we couldn't have made another Paradise Killer. That would have, I don't know.
I think as a studio, we always want to do something different as well.
I think we'd like to do 2 back to back, I think, that are quite dark. I think that's like a mental health trap. A bit, to be quite honest. I think it's for us as well as for other people. I think we need a little palate cleanser. And Promise Mascot Agency is certainly a palate cleanser for us, I think.
Yeah, I think like when Phil and I set up the company, we never intended to just make one type of game. It was always we want to do different genres, different stories, different tones. Just like some developers in the past, like Human Entertainment back in PS1 era, like they made all sorts of stuff. Like one month they'd release one of the best wrestling games ever made. The next they'd release the first open world PS1 mystery game, and then the next they do a horror game, and like that's the kind of thing that I think we want to be at is just trying lots of different stuff and not like we don't have any plans at the moment for a PMA sequel. I think there's stuff we want to do and we would like to revisit that world, but the next game we do is going to be totally different and a different genre, different story, everything. And I think that's what we find fun is like the challenge of that, of stepping up to that and figuring it out and trying to operate at a level where we can keep the company going whilst doing that. Like hitting a certain quality, hitting a certain like commercial and critical success, but also doing the surprising weirder stuff and shifting around in tone, but always having a Kaizen house style. So when you come to one of our games, that there is not necessarily a visual style or it's going to be the same gameplay all the time, but like if you enjoy the kind of stuff that we do, it's going to be present.
To end the interview, like you guys have just pushed out an update for Promise Mascot Agency, including the van grinding, which I can't wait to try out. Tell us more about the update and why you guys decided to bring it out for free and everything.
When we shipped the game, we knew that we wanted to give it some support. And you've been working on this game for 4.5 years, and it was quite tough to suddenly just down tools on something that had taken that long. And I don't think any of us were quite ready to say goodbye to all of our best pals. Mm-hmm. And there was stuff like the grinding was something that our programmer Harry had in his mind that he wanted to do, but he knew there was just no way it was going to get in for the original release. And then we were looking at what else can we add. And so like hero cards are an easy add for us and are a worthwhile reward for players to find. And then Phil has experimented with time trials during development, and a very early prototype version of those existed in the code when we shipped, but it wasn't anywhere near ready. And it had been a tough project. It had been a really hard dev cycle. And so we needed something to like wind down with for the team, but also something to say thank you to the fans, because PMA has resonated with a lot of people. People have really enjoyed it. And we wanted to be able to say, thank you, here's some more. Because one of the big things we kept hearing is that people wanted more, which is, wonderful to hear, but it also, puts a little bit of pressure on us. So we wanted to like, people just wanted to spend more time in the world. So we needed to find ways of adding that. And it was nice to have a kind of relaxed couple of months of development of not just saying goodbye to Casamachi immediately and being able to hang out a little bit more. And we're all like masters of the tools that we have now, so we can make stuff happen pretty quickly, and it's fun when there's less barriers to implementing something now. Once you've got a shipped game and you know how the tools work, like there is a part of it which is just making stuff rather than fighting and figuring stuff out. So,
and you've got a bunch of validation as well, right? Because you know what people have and have not enjoyed. So if we had a bunch of feedback, I don't know how it would have changed it, but because people were enjoying being in the world, gives you a lot of confidence to say, well, time trials are the way, or, people have enjoyed how the truck feels. So giving a new way of using that is just a really nice thing. And they're things that just slot into the current game so well. Like, neither of these things are going to change how you play, but you can choose how to do these sections when you want and how you want to. It's just, it's just a nice bonus for people who are new and existing players to jump back in, have a good time, and it felt the right thing to do, rather than trying to introduce some massive new mechanic that would impact the way the game play. That would have been, well, problematic, but also you don't want to mess with it because it does seem to have hit the right chord with people. And I don't really like it if we were to introduce like a whole bunch of new characters and that meant you had to play the game again to experience these characters. I think it takes something away from the people who have played it first. Like, they suddenly feel like they've missed out, they've not got this. And I mean, it's wonderful if they want to go and play it again. Nothing will make me happier, but you're sort of requiring them to get the complete experience. And I don't always feel comfortable asking for that. So I'm glad that what we've done is all additive, optional additive stuff rather than sort of required content.
Yeah, that's really thoughtful. And very appreciative of a person who's completed the game. So, yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I'm just really excited because I remember finishing the game, but I hadn't finished all the tasks and everything or got all the mascots, and I had to go and play another game. But I did make sure to come back and polish it off and try and just complete everything that I could. So I always take that as a sign of a good quality game, that when I have that feeling of, wanting to get back in and finish everything.
Yeah, I had a few friends message me a few days after releasing, I platinumed it, got 100%. That's bonkers. Like, your friends will play games because they're nice, that's why you're friends. But then to actually spend the time doing all that, and some of those are, relatively tricky. They do require exploration. It's not just a passing play. And that feels really nice.
Definitely. Must be very satisfying. I know, you said that you'd like to go back to Promise Mascot Agency maybe one day or something. Do you think you'll do that? Is this it for Promise Mascot Agency in this world, do you think? Or maybe one day you'll come back?
Who knows?
Anything could happen. I think, yeah.
I'd like to, but who knows what will happen?
I've got in my head something I'd like to do with the characters and do something new with it, and a slightly different style of game. Still very Promise Mascot Agency, but there's some different things I'd quite like to do with it. And my promise to anyone that wants more Promise Mascot Agency is that Pinky will be back. I will walk if someone says that we're making Promise Mascot Agency 2 and Pinky's not in it.
That's all the news I wanted to hear. Just to finish, I'd like to ask this question, and it's just, can you explain your game in one word?
Madness.
No.
Phil, you've got to stop doing this.
No.
I want to say silly, but I think some people have
charming.
Charming. There we go.
That's
good.
Is
that weird for us
that
to
is
say?
good.
No, I think that's what we want. One of my big inspirations was Deadly Premonition, and that is a game of charm. It comes together, and you can tell a bunch of people that really cared about what they were making made something that only they could make, and it's really unique and charming for it. And I think that's what we want to do. I think we reject some kind of perfectionist design in pursuit of doing something charming. People will say, it's janky, but you know what causes charm? Jank. So long as the truck doesn't flip out like the cars do in Deadly Premonition, we're okay.
Yeah, that is a good word, Rach. Definitely charming.
Well done.
Yeah.
My work here is done.
Guys, thank you so much for spending some of your spare Friday evening time with me. It's been enlightening to speak to you about Promise Mascot Agency and just about your studio. And I really, really appreciate you guys coming on to talk about all that kind of stuff.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome anytime. Just let me know. We could just talk video games if you like. No problem. If you can just direct people to where they can keep up to date with your projects, where they could just follow you to keep up to date with you, where can they go and do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we're Kaizen Game Works on BlueSky, Twitter, Instagram,
YouTube,
TikTok. We've got a subreddit for Paradise Killer and a subreddit for Promise Mascot Agency. We're always in there chatting to people. So if you want to chat, come and say hi. And yeah, like Steam forums.
Yeah, we're active on the Steam forums. You can't not be everywhere.
I think it was one of the things I quite appreciated of you guys in general, just like how friendly and open you are on social media. You know, not a lot of studios can be kind of like that. And as a player who's really like, you know, kind of fallen in love with the game, to have that particular studio kind of be that open and friendly, it was just really cool.
That's Rachel's magic. She's wonderful at
So
it.
much appreciated.
Yeah, Rach handles all of our social media stuff, and she's a very nice person, very friendly person.
Ollie does some as well. Like,
when we need some crazy Paradise Killer talk. But it's just bizarre that people care enough to reach out to us. So like, we're very grateful for that, and we've got a lovely community. And I think our games have managed to attract a nice class of person.
Definitely.
But we don't get death threats yet. We haven't got into any trouble like that, so we're doing all right.
Yeah, we love chatting to people. So just very happy that people want to talk to us. It still doesn't feel real yet. Not jaded at all.
And thanks to you, dear listener. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, then please consider giving us a 5-star rating or a review on your favourite podcast platform. We would be very grateful if you did. Don't forget to check out somanygames.co.uk, and if you'd like to talk to me and the So Many Games crew in real time, then you can do so over on our Discord. Until next time, please take care and happy gaming.